Time for the Nigel Bradham Report. Rich Quinones here. We'll take you up to 2. Of course, Nigel Bradham Report brought to you by Ernest Asano Fashion Butcher Shop. As we welcome in the linebacker of the Philadelphia Eagles, Nigel Bradham. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm just wondering, I'm going to assume that the kicker never probably has to pay a meal again in Philadelphia.
That's right. You know it.
All right, let's get to the game itself because we got a lot to cover in a short amount of time. Listen, that's a typical ebb and flow game where it just seemed like you guys were really dominating, and then what happens is, right, you start to leave a bad team. You let them hang around. You let a quarterback that's been able to make some plays make some plays. I'm curious, from a defensive standpoint, was the game plan, I don't want to say master secondary with some of those injuries, but don't let those guys beat you over the top, because it seemed like you guys were content giving Eli and Shepard and Odell and Marshall those quick little slants, as long as they weren't going to break one or beat you over the top.
Right, yeah. That was the game plan going into it. I mean, it's basically to eliminate the big plays, and that's their main threat. You know they want to get over the top on you. I mean, those guys, they got great deep ball threats, and we know what those guys are capable of doing. So that was the game plan going into the game, eliminating the big plays and pretty much just trying to keep those guys contained. We'll give them the short route,
Yep.
and pretty much just come up and tackle.
You guys are up 7-0, and then the Giants, again, they kind of methodically move it a little bit. They catch a couple breaks here and there. That goal line play, listen, I get it. You know, when you talk about what's a catch, what's not a catch, obviously you're going to sit there and say it's not a catch. I mean, the NFL needs to look into that rule. But I'm curious on that 4th down and goal. Were you guys in goal line D where they gave it to Darkwa, 10.5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, well, it was in base defense actually.
Okay.
And but we had like a certain way we was gonna run it to that package that they were in. They were in 12 personnel. So
you kind of knew they were going to run the ball, though. It didn't. I mean, to me, it didn't.
Yeah. And then they put the big back in
Yep.
the backfield. You know, he's the goal line back. So we pretty much knew. And then he was the line tight. So we had the play called. We actually had Joe Walker in the game because Jordan Higgs had just went down.
Yeah, Walker blew up the play.
Yeah, and that's just being accountable, man. Being able to, you know, have a young guy step in and step up and make a play like that. That was big for us. Studying film, I felt like he knew what play they were running, just because of the alignment of the back, and we all communicated it, and he stepped up and made a great play for us, man.
You know, the NFL, it's a funny sport week to week because all week long the narrative, the storyline was the Eagles' defensive front against that weak Giants O-line. You know, the Giants kept the quarterback pretty clean for the most part. You were able to get a couple pressures and some hurries, but then conversely, it had to be nice watching on the sidelines with your defensive unit, your defensive teammates, where, you know, offensively the Eagles start running the football a little bit, and they go against the Giants' strength, which is their run defense, and they're chewing up the clock, and they're having these long methodical drives. I mean, from a defensive standpoint, you guys were probably sitting there smiling, loving it.
Oh yeah, man, we had an amazing time being able to just sit back on the sideline, seeing us get first down after first down, seeing Blunt be able to run the ball and just running through guys, breaking tackles, man. It was exciting. It was exciting to see our offense get rolling, and we knew that was their game plan, that they wanted to get the run game established. So going into that game, that was something we knew all week we was going to be interested in seeing.
Yeah, the one thing that stood out too yesterday, and you can appreciate this, we always talk about second effort plays, and I know the Giants tackling, it was shoddy, but the bottom line is the running backs never stopped moving their legs, whether it was Corey, whether it was Smallwood, whether it was Blunt. It just seemed as though they were not giving up on plays, even when the line was getting a push on some of those 4th and inches. Like, it just seemed as though, even though it was a tightly contested game, second effort was there yesterday. And quite frankly, that's a game, I don't know if you guys win that game last year. You know, that's a game where maybe you just kind of falter late, but you kept regrouping and answering the bell every time the Giants scored.
Yeah, and we felt like we had to, man. We kept throughout that game. We faced injuries, man. I mean, Fletcher had went down.
Yep.
Jordan went down.
Darren went down. Sproles
went down, and we kept facing adversity throughout that game, man. But we kept having guys step up and played tremendous roles as well in that game. Like Michael Kendricks made tremendous plays in that game. Patrick Robinson made plays. Well, Zula Douglas stepped up, made
2 weeks in a
plays.
row.
Yeah, so it's like we just continue to have guys step up and just put that chip on their shoulder. Like there's not going to be any fall off. You know, it was pretty much we're here to win this game no matter what. Like no matter what happens. And you're right. Maybe last year we don't win that game. That's something we have to go through. I feel like, and last year we went through those games and we were in close games like that, those situations, and just couldn't close. But we found a way to close this time. And that was a big growth in us as a team, I feel like.
And, you know, for as well as the Giants O-line played yesterday, late in the game, the last possession, what happens? You get the pressure, you get the happy feet with Flowers, you get the movement at the line, the jump, then you get the holding penalty, it pushes them back, Vereen inexplicably goes out of bounds, and then there's just enough time for a couple plays. Listen, the quarterback didn't make any mistakes yesterday, but when he needed to make a throw, he makes a throw on third down, and I'm just wondering, you guys are sitting there, did you think it was going to be a Hail Mary, or were you guys confident in the kicker? From what Doug said this morning, the kid looked him in the eyes and he said, "Can you make it?" He said, "Yeah, I'll nail it." And he goes out there and listen, that kick was never in doubt. I mean, that kid drilled it.
Yeah, he drilled it. And it's funny because the first week he got here, we seen him and he was hitting some deep balls in practice. I think it was like the second day he might have, after he signed with the team. He was out there at practice, and he was hitting some deep balls, man, from about that distance. And he was nailing them then. So he pretty much he knew what he had the capability of doing it. Like it was nothing to him. He pretty much just treated it like practice, and he went out there and he just nailed it, man. We was all excited, man. Man, it's amazing to see that kid because I promise you, he looked like a kid.
Yeah, he did. I saw the reaction from his parents, which was great.
Yeah. His leg strength is a grown man leg strength though, and that's for sure, man. He nailed that. I feel like he had some room. It was perfect. Like it was picture perfect.
How do you guys? The injuries are starting to pile up. The Sproles injury is huge. I know Cox and Hicks are going to be day by day, according to Doug. Is it the mentality? Hey, next man up. I mean, that's just how it has to be.
Yeah. That's just how it has to be right now, and I feel like we'll be fine as a defense. I mean, we got guys that can play. Maybe we'll get a couple guys coming back off of injuries too as well, hopefully. So, I mean, we feel like we got guys that can play. We definitely should. We'll have some guys coming back off of injury, I believe. Guys will be ready to play, man. We feel like we're ready to get this thing rolling. We need to get a nice little win streak going.
It's amazing what that type of win, because if you guys lose that game, maybe it deflates you and it gives the Giants life, but you come away and, listen, 0-3 now. They're 0-3 in the conference, 0-2 in the division. Washington gets a big win last night against the Raiders. Dallas plays tonight. That division is still somewhat wide open, but you're right. I mean, that's a game where you get a little momentum. Again, Eagles linebacker Nigel Bradham with us, his weekly spot. Rich Quinones here. All right, I got to ask you this. I thought yesterday – great games in the NFL. Unfortunately, the storyline was the president's comments over the weekend, and you saw the unity from everyone. I'm wondering, from an organizational standpoint, and I don't know if you speak to this, was there talk in the locker room or during the weekend how you guys were going to approach the national anthem and the locking of the arms and the whatnot and everything after what was said over the weekend?
Well, it was... because that earlier that morning, when the Jaguars game, I felt like that had set the tone of what was going to happen throughout the league. I mean, it was pretty much much more of showing unity as an organization. It definitely was something nobody expected to be said or as much as a topic as it is. We just took it on as that way. We wanted to show like we were sticking together as a unit, and I mean it's sad, man, that a lot of the stuff that with a lot of things going on that this is such a topic. I feel like this shouldn't even be a topic with a lot of the situations that's going on in the world today. So it's just one of those things, man. We just gotta come together as people and realize that until we come together as people, things won't be right.
Listen, I agree. I might not like. I've said this on the air, and I'm passionate because the flag means something to me when I think of the military, and I'll tell you right now, I don't like the kneeling, and that's my opinion. But again, it's peaceful. I don't know how much of it's going to change if it opens up the conversation. I don't agree with what the president said. I don't like those remarks. It doesn't mean my political stance either way. And you're right. It's sad that you get a great day of football, and it's kind of been the dominant story. And you're right. At the end of the day, everyone's got to take a look in the mirror and decide how you're going to treat each other and how you're going to act. I mean, that's the bottom line. But yesterday was the NFL, the players like yourself, the franchises, the organizations. Let's be honest. They were sticking it back to the commander-in-chief, and I don't have an issue with that. Sometimes you do have to turn around, and you have to show that unity. Whether I agree with it or not, it doesn't matter. Yesterday was a watershed moment in the NFL. You're not going to get another day like that again in the league. You're just not.
Right.
It's yeah, I know. I know. You're like, come on, talk football. All right, let me before before I let you get out of here, listen, so that's a big win. You got the Chargers, you got the Cardinals and the Panthers. I know you're going to keep an eye on the Cowboys, but that's a tough trip out there to Los Angeles now with San Diego. That seems to can't close, but they still have a pretty good quarterback, and they still have weapons there. So real quick, before I let you get out of here, give me your thoughts on that game.
Oh, man, yeah, it's definitely going to be a game where we have to go in and establish that we're going to stop the run early. We know what their run game is capable of doing because they got, like you said, they have the weapons. They got a great quarterback. He's going to be able to get the ball out fast. He's going to try to get the ball out of his hands fast and things like that. So we're going to have to figure out ways to be able to create pressure on him and make him uncomfortable in that pocket. Take away some of those step-up lanes and make sure our underneath coverage is on point as well to take away some of those quick passes. I believe our guys will step up, and we'll be ready for the challenge.
All right, listen, it's a big win. Hopefully you guys carry that momentum. Listen, I told you were forewarned to come on. You didn't know what you're going to get every week. But you know what? You always make for good radio, and it's been 2 good segments in a row this week. And it's always good. It's better when the Eagles win to talk a little more. I always appreciate it. Best of luck against the Chargers next week, and we'll talk on Monday, pal.
Thank you. Hope it's a great one.
All right, you got it. Nigel Bradham, a couple minutes.